All right, everybody, thanks for joining us today. So what we're going to take a look at today is how to approach kind of the last 2 weeks of studying before you take the AP US History exam. So you don't have a lot of time. You can't reread a book in this amount of time. You can look through your notes, but I think you really want to be careful and really try to bring it to a high level. It's just, I think it's really best to think about the time periods and think about the themes. I really think that's your best bet. So I'm going to show you, I've got a document that I shared out with you guys before. I would encourage you guys to make a copy of it and produce your own study guide. I don't mind compiling some of this stuff in the next 2 weeks on the one study guide for everybody. But I think it's very helpful for you to use the document to put in what you remember and what you find and kind of personalize it. I think that helps you make it easier to remember. And I think using a table like the one I've given you here will help you recall that information in an easier way. Guys, I'm just telling you right now, it is, I don't want to make it sound like it's easier than it is. When you have to study something like this course started off with 1607 to the 2000s, and now they've shortened it to, and we're going to talk about that today, to the 1700s to the 1940s. But that's still a huge chunk of history. There's still a lot there that you have to know. And I think sometimes as students, whether you're in a science class, whether you're in a math class, whether you're in a history class, whatever it may be, at the end of the year when you have to take a big exam, and I know Ms. Hunt and I have talked about this before, college exams can be really, honestly, kind of scary. When you look at your final exam, how much stuff you have to know. And I think that you guys just have to keep in mind that you want to keep it at a high level. You want to make sure you get through all the material. And then when you identify areas that you don't remember, those are the areas that you can focus more on and really get into the detail. But you don't have enough time in 2 weeks to go over every detail of everything that's covered in a year. But you do have the ability to do it at a high level and then do some strategic studying for those areas that you don't remember as well. Okay. And by the way, that's why taking notes, that's why being very attentive throughout the year is very helpful at this point too, because some of you might say, well, a lot of it really didn't stick with me, right? It wasn't just like a few areas. It was a lot of it. I have a hard time remembering a lot of it. Well, then I would just keep it at that high level and really study the time periods and the themes. But again, if you've been really attentive and it's like 1 or 2 tests that threw you or just these chunks that you don't remember as well, then again, you can use that kind of strategic investment of time there just for those areas. So let me go ahead and share with you a PowerPoint that I've been working on over here. And I want to talk through this as, let me see, view, present. Okay, so this is just I want to walk through again. We have been practicing these together, but I want to show you now how you can get every point on the exam. And I think you're going to see now how everything's coming together and what I've been talking about in every class and why I've talked about it in the way that I have, so that you have the ability to get all these points on the AP exam, okay? So first of all, it's 45 minutes long. You have 5 minutes to download the exam. So they've kind of done that just in case you're on your phone or computer, and so that they give you a little bit of grace period there. And what they're looking to have you guys do, again, is this is the high level that you've got to develop. You've got to assess the sources given to you. You've got to develop an argument, and then they give you this time period. Again, it's 1607 and 1945. So notice here, you have the sources you have to assess. And remember, that's why I always talk to you guys about HIP. That's how you assess them. Then you got to develop an argument. That's why I write that thesis statement with you guys here in every class. So I already pretty much told you that. The reason I put this on here is so you guys know you can handwrite. There is a handwritten option. If you write it by hand, you've got to take a picture of it and send it off. I'm going to go ahead and address this right now. A lot of students have asked, so does that mean it's open note? It's open book? Technically, it is open note or open book. The timer starts and you have 45 minutes to write the essay. I do want to warn you guys, if you go into this and think, oh, I'll just look up the answer whenever it pops up, first of all, do not plagiarize. They have very sophisticated tools to catch any type of plagiarism on that. But number two, that's not going to be enough time. You're going to have to analyze documents. I figure that, guys, should take you about 10 minutes to get through all 5 documents, 10 to 15 minutes. And then you're going to have to write that essay. And if you're looking in a book, if you're looking for information, you're going to run out of time so fast. Okay. So I'm just telling you, it really is not worth it to try one of those alternative routes. Not that any of you guys would ever do that. Right. But it really is good to just really focus on analyzing the sources and then quickly, again, use the formula I've talked to you guys about so that you can move very quickly and put that together. That's it. That's the whole exam this year. Okay. Again, I know you guys have known that, so I've told you that multiple times. There's 10 points you can get total. And I'm going to walk you through kind of how you get each of those points here in a minute. Okay, let's see. So I kind of have this here as what is a DBQ? What kind of documents could you be given? Again, we've talked about this. Primary sources, secondary sources, photographs, political cartoons, maps, charts, and graphs. Again, you guys have seen that here as we've gone. You know, sometimes I explain it like it's a research paper where they give you the research and then ask you to write the essay. Also, I think you could look at it as like it's a puzzle, right? They give you all the puzzle pieces and say, now you make something out of it. Now you put it all together. So any way that however you want to view that, whatever's easiest for you to think through that. But just remember, all those sources are given to you for a reason. They all fit into the prompt. Just like I told you yesterday, we kind of had an odd source that was thrown at us. Well, it fits somehow, okay? And that's why those analysis tools of the HIP analysis help you get through that, okay? So if you're constantly thinking in those terms, it can help you get that. So let's take a look at the points. So here's how you get the points. Thesis. You have to have a thesis that answers the prompt, okay? And I told you guys that X, however, A, B, therefore Y. X and A, B answer the prompt. Therefore, Y uses the language of the prompt. And that is exactly how you can get that 1 point. So if you use that thesis formula, guys, and unless you're just like pulling stuff out of thin air, if it's actual evidence, if you're actually making an argument, you'll get that 1 point. So again, if you use the formula I've shown you guys, that 1 point shouldn't be an issue at all. The next one is what I talked a lot about yesterday, contextualization. I want you to think of it like this. Context is saying what happened before and what happened after. So if you told somebody about the Civil War and they were like, whoa, 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 how did we get there? Like, how did we get to a civil war? Well, what happened before? You would need to set the scene, right? So what I have here is I want you to think about, again, we'll see how many of my pop culture references just fall flat, but we all at least know what Star Wars is. And hopefully, you know, one of the things that makes Star Wars really famous is that opening line of like, you got all the words that come across the screen, come across the sky, and you read them as they go, right? In a galaxy far, far away. Think about what that's doing. It's telling you what just happened, or else you'd be like, what's happening right now? Who's chasing who? What's going on? Think about that as your contextualization. Think about setting up, again, there you go. I got a picture of the stuff flying across the screen. So think about that as your opening. Use 2 or 3 sentences to tell the reader what happened before, then jump into your thesis statement. Then when you're through with your essay, use that final paragraph to then tell the reader what happened next, what followed up here. The next piece of evidence is how you use the evidence from the sources. So you could potentially get 3 points for using the documents. Again, if you use at least 4 of the documents to support your argument, you get all 3 points. Okay, and that doesn't mean saying document 3 shows this. That means that you're going to have to do more than quote it. You're going to have to show how it supports your argument. So again, go back to what we've been doing this week. We've been using the documents to make a larger argument. We've been using the purpose, the point of view. Again, make sure that if you use all of them, or at least 4, and you use them to support an argument, that's how you get the 3 points there. Okay. I'm not too worried about this. I think I've explained that. I'm not worried about that either. There is one extra point that I haven't talked about, and that is evidence beyond the documents. So you get 2 points for using extra evidence, okay? And that means that means that they've given you 5 sources. But if you want to get these extra 2 points, you're going to need to say, I also know blah. Okay, I also know that you didn't put in here Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, but I know that Martin Luther King Jr. gave the I Have a Dream speech, which talked about how race relations could be better in America. But I just added another source. I gave a specific example. I gave a speech by a historical figure, and I explained it. I used it in argumentation. So if you can do that, if you can pull another source and you can explain it and use it in your argument, that's actually 2 points. 1 for providing another source, 1 for using it in argumentation. So just think of that as you extending it. So as you read through these, as we talk over the next 2 weeks, I want you to always think about that. What other evidence have you seen or do you remember that you could add on to what they've given you? So that's how you get that specific 2 points there, okay? Analysis and reasoning, again, you're going to get 2 points for this, and this is, have you throughout your essay provided some analysis of all of the documents, and have you reasoned through all of it for your argument? And notice that this is literally pulled out of their grading. You can talk about the point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience. So that's kind of where I pull the hip from, okay? So again, if you do those things, that's what they count as analysis and reasoning. So as long as you've utilized those type of tools, there you go. As long as you've utilized those type of tools, you can get those 2 points on top of that, okay? So again, here are the HIP kind of requirements there, the historical context. You can talk about the intended audience, the point of view, and the purpose. Any of those count as analyzing a source in a way that would give you a point. So again, I know I put the HIP analysis sheets in the agenda for each of our calls. So if you guys wanted to play around with those, but as long as you can do those 4 things, that is considered an appropriate analysis of your sources. All right, now here's one that everybody makes trickier than it is, and don't worry, because we've already dealt with it. They give a point out for something they call complexity. And that means, did you just make a really simple argument, or did you make an argument that is actually complex? And so what does the complexity mean? The complexity means that simply you've made an argument that acknowledges there's other points of view. So whenever we say some of these documents support blah, 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 but these 3 don't support it, that kind of however in our thesis statement, when we say, hey, it shows this, however, it also shows that, that shows complexity on our part. We're saying not everything is supporting of this. There's some other documents, there's some other arguments out there. That's how you get that complexity point. So there's a lot of teachers that kind of struggle with that. I think it's pretty straightforward. As long as you can show that there's other perspectives that you acknowledge in your essay, that's how you get that point. Okay, good question, Xavier. How big is the exam? Great question. So it's going to be just 45 minutes, 5 minutes to read it, 45 minutes on the exam itself, and that's it. Now, how long does your answer have to be? They don't tell you. I think 5 paragraphs. I think all they say is you got to get these 10 things. They don't even tell you how long it's got to be. They don't even tell you what format it's got to be in, okay? So whatever you can do to get those 10 points is fine. I think 5 paragraphs, the file size, that so I don't know.
How many essays do we have to write for the test?
Just one. Just one. Yeah, Xavier, that's a good question. I don't know. I can get you the answer to that, though. I get what you're saying, too, because that could make it tough to download or whatnot. That's a good question. I hadn't even thought of that. So thank you for that. I can get an answer to that, though, this week. Good question. And again, they say it's easy enough for you to take on your phone. But I do. I can look into that and make sure that that's right about that file size. So great question. But yeah, no, it's just that one essay, and that's going to be what they grade. And again, there's no certain requirement there of how long it's got to be. So that's great. So I just explained all that right there. And again, I'll share these PowerPoint slides with you. But again, I thought we could talk through it pretty well. Now, one of the things I do want you to think about is right when you get it, and again, I've tried to walk through this as we've done these DBQs together, go through the sources, read that prompt. And I said here 5 to 8 minutes to brainstorm or to plan. I mean, you really need to be moving, okay? you really have to make sure that once you start reading them, you're organizing them. You're saying, oh, this supports, this doesn't support, this does this does that. I mean, do that as you go. So in 10 minutes, you could have read through all of them. You could have organized all of them, and then you're plugging them in. Then you're making your argument. So I think after 10 minutes, you really should be through all of the documents and really start to do the actual writing itself, okay? So if you think about it like this, you read the documents. As you're reading them, you group them, okay? After you group them and you know kind of I'm going to use these here, these there, write your thesis, use the formula, write it out, boom, do your body paragraphs, and then there you go. That's your awesome DBQ right there, okay? Cyclical chart always makes things look simple, so I already covered how long it should be, spelling and grammar.
What up, Mr. Waters?
Yep. What's up?
Desmond.
How's it going, Desmond?
Good.
Dude, you've been doing like the at-home workout there. I see the gun show.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, you have been working out. I need to do something. I've been doing too much potato chips sitting around the house.
You growing
So-
a beard too.
I know. This is quarantine beard. That's what that is right there. I'm about to have to get rid of all of it. It's so itchy and nasty. So what do you guys think at this point from like the DBQ itself? Do I have any other questions on that? That was a good question by Xavier that I need to get back to you guys on. Any other kind of technical questions before I talk about kind of how we need to be studying over the next 2 weeks to help prepare for it? Sweet. That means I answered like all of your questions. So now let's talk about this. So I think that when you're going to go back and you're going to study, and I just hit you with something, right? I told you that you're going to have context. So that means if they ask you a question about World War II, you're going to have to tell me what happened right before World War II. If they ask you a question about the Civil War, you're going to have to talk about what happened before and what happened after. So what I think is one of the best ways to study is I've shown you guys apnotes.net. It gives those summaries. Man, just read back over some of those little summaries, because again, the summaries are telling you like, these are some of the biggest things that happen. If you still have your textbook, hopefully most of you do, they didn't get trapped in the school, but if you have your textbook or have an electronic textbook, just read the introduction to the chapter. In the introduction, they tell you what just happened. So again, if you can kind of keep some of that fresh on your mind, so when they drop a question on you, you can like hit them with like, oh, this just happened right before it. I think that's a really helpful way to study for the context. Now, how do you study all the content that we covered? All right, I got you. Here's the way I think you should do that in a really, let me get out of my PowerPoint here, in a really simple way of doing that. So I shared this document with you guys, and if y'all didn't get it, I'll share it with some of you again. It's really, really simple. I put together this chart. Again, you guys know that I like acronyms because I like to keep it simple. So the acronym is SPICE-T. SPICE-T, okay? And so the acronym stands for Society, Politics, Interaction with Foreign Countries, Culture, Economy, and Technology. So I probably should have bolded them so you could see it there, but SPICE-T, okay? So what I want us to do, what I want you guys doing, and again, I think it would be very helpful to do this individually and create your own personalized study guide. And again, I don't mind working on one with you guys. And again, I know sometimes you guys think I just like to make you do stuff, right? But I really promise, like, there's something about doing it yourself and finding the sources yourself. And then that's a good question, Xavier. That's why my computer crashes like every week, because of all the tabs. It's absolutely a real problem. But what you see happen there is, if you can go back and group all of that information as you go back and study, you can then have it in this one little chart, okay? And as you start typing in here, it'll just grow with you. And again, going back to what I was saying about just giving you guys work, when you do it yourself, when you find the material yourself and then you plug it into this chart, you're more likely to remember it than if I just type it all in there and you just go over it and look at it, okay? So what I would like for you guys to do is, over the next week, is use this as your study guide. go back and look at this time. And by the way, they can only ask you from 1754 to 1945. That's it. Okay, so we don't have to know all the stuff in the very beginning. Guys, if you remember us talking about the English settlements, we talked about Jamestown, we talked about why people came over from England and everything. They're not going to ask you about that. They're going to start there right during the American Revolution. Now, remember, if they ask you a question about the American Revolution and you want to talk about in your context what happened before, like the settlers or whatnot, that's fine. But I'm just telling you, they're not going to ask you directly about that stuff. They're not going to ask you a question specifically about it. So the best way to do this is, again, as you go back in your notes and you start looking at each of these, or you start taking one by one, in 1754, I would just do it row by row. I would start off at the very beginning here, American Revolution. If you want to go back to our first video, we went over that. But if you want to say, what was society like back then? Type in a few key terms. If you want to talk, then go down to politics. What was politics like back then? Blah, blah, blah. They had two parties. They just started. You had the first government, blah, blah, blah. What was the interaction with foreign countries? Well, American Revolution, there's the middle of a war with Great Britain, right? So I'd put in there that we're in the middle of our first war with Great Britain, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, go down through and just use your key terms. And so then you're going to have this chart that you can go back to and take a look at, and it will have all of those key events. Then what I want to do in the next couple of weeks is, again, have you guys share that with each other. And then the week before the test, that Tuesday probably, we can all get on and we'll create one big document, and I'll just sit here typing and we'll talk through it. We'll have all this information to share with each other. But remember, you want to have, and the reason why I do the categories like that is because if they ask you a question about politics, I want you to have the ability to remember all of these different things that happened in politics during that time period. They ask you about technology, the economy. I mean, these are the themes they love to use. So not only are we setting the time periods, we're setting the themes. So I think this helps put you guys in a good position there. So are there any questions on, I'm going to try to operate a lot out of that study guide here over the next 2 weeks. Because, guys, I don't know if y'all know that, but we only got 2 more weeks. Y'all gonna miss seeing me on your computer and phones. I know. I don't know if I'm gonna cut this beard before then. I might cut it before then just so you guys can see what it look like, if y'all remember what my face looks like without a beard. But yeah, so I'm gonna work out of that a lot over the next 2 weeks. Is there any question over that document? And again, I tried to share it with all of you. So if you didn't get it, shoot me an email or shoot Ms. Hunt an email and we can reshare that with you. But again, it's not like a very complex document, but I am going to keep putting resources on the bottom of it too, and I want to show you what that looks like. So the resource I have down here is that 5-able study guide. I want to click on that and show you. So again, I think they do a good job with this, and this is for this exam. So this is taking into account the changes that were made. So this guy tells you about who he is, blah, blah, blah. But he tells you kind of the rubric that I went over earlier. But here's what I thought were really good, is if you click on like what I'm talking about right now, the American Revolution, he connects to the videos, okay? He connects to these articles, which are the study guides, and they look like this. You guys think me having so many tabs is why this stuff runs so slow? Oh, they also do like that. I don't know if y'all saw that in the bottom part of the screen, but like they will chat. Like there's a chat option with this guy too. And I don't know who's all on his team, but if you get on here, you can actually chat with one of their AP teachers that put this together. Okay, let me chat them. Come on now. Don't fail me now, computer. If my computer does crash though, for good, I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. Come on now. All right. I promise it works. I'm not sending you guys like a fake website. I'm gonna try that again. Yeah. Okay. Well, you might just have to believe me on that. So yeah, anyway. So there are these, they just come out in different study guides for each unit. So he puts all that right there. So there's that. crash course videos with John Green, the YouTube video with the college boards, the AP chat. So that's all right there for you to help with that. And then, like I said, next week we've got, now again, I do a call on Tuesday. I want to talk to you guys about that. And then we do Wednesday and Thursday at 3, but Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. I'm going to have a special guest come in and talk to you guys on Tuesday that's going to talk about infectious diseases and their role in American history. So that will be interesting. I'm going to send you guys some information on that in the future. They reached out to me, and I think it'll be an interesting lesson that aligns with what we're doing here with the AP courses. So, and I'm excited about that. So I'll send you guys a link and some information on that. Any questions over those guides before I kind of talk high level about one more thing, and then I'm gonna pretty well be done for the day. All right. The last thing I was going to say is on this guide right here, and you all, I've told you all this before, and you're probably going to roll your eyes at me, but I'm not even going to look at you in your screen when I say this because I know that's what you're going to do. But when you're looking at reviewing for this test, and when you look at these time periods, it would be great if you would make flashcards over the time periods. Okay, and then try to think of several things that are important during that time period. Write them on the back of the card and see if you can find, and if you can memorize one thing about society from the American Revolution time period, one thing about politics from then, one thing about foreign policy, culture, economy, so forth and so on. So if you use those 6 categories, put one key thing about them, and if you memorize that for every theme, okay, there's only 5 themes or only 5 time periods, you would be sitting in a really good position to just have that automatic recall. And again, the reason why that's important is because you just don't have a lot of time. So if you memorize what was a big political event during that time period, I think would be very, very helpful for you guys. But I know flashcards aren't a lot of fun. I know that people think they're really outdated, but I promise it helps. It helps memorize things. Now it's not going to help you like develop your whole argument and things like that we've been talking through, but it will at least help you remember some of those key things that happen there. And so if you guys start working on this, you can share it with me. I can talk you through it. If you have a question or need help with one, I can help give you some more evidence. And then again, like I said, after next week, I wanted to share one with everybody, and let's just work on it together, and let's just make this huge document with all this stuff on there that if you guys want to come back and study on your own, you can. But I think it would be very helpful if you played with that document by yourself, found all that information by yourself and added that on there. Okay. So that's my advice for kind of the way to study for the next 2 weeks. Use that guide for the next week. Go back in your notes. Go back, watch the John Green videos. Fill that out. And then again, we will continue working on some DBQs as we're leading up to that point.